Hey guys, Simon here, and thanks for stopping by and checking out my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Friday the 13th the game and 10 things you may or may not know about the game. Some of the things I will be talking about in the video will be trivia, references, game mechanics, and a couple Easter eggs I found that you may or may not know about yet. If you enjoy the video, do the button thing, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you think. I hope you guys enjoy the video and learn something new. Here we go. This is a cool cross-reference Easter egg I think, and I came across it when I found another Easter egg down the list. Out in the cemetery toward the back left row is a grave with the name Joshua Tommy Gun Thompson written on it. Beneath that, he was once a brave man till his head fell off. Rest in peace, Tommy Gun. So let's start with the film reference, which in this case I believe belongs to Julius Gaw, the badass boxer from Part 8 Jason Takes Manhattan. You can best remember him for beating the hell out of Jason on top of a roof in the Big Apple, which ultimately led to his death because when he ran out of steam right before he would have knocked Jason off the roof possibly, Jason gave him an 80s Mike Tyson spin around punch, sending his head flying off the roof into a garbage dumpster. Which is what leads to the second part of the Tombstones message: he was a brave man until his head fell off. Pretty direct right there. The nickname Tommy Gun, however, I believe belongs to Tommy Gunn from the awful Rocky V. This was the name of the student that Rocky took on and trained, and he ends up becoming big, and then he leaves Rocky and goes with a Don King-like boxing promoter. Long story short, he becomes champ, but everyone thinks he's a chump because, he didn't fight Rocky to get the title. But Sly ends up beating his ass in a street fight, and that's pretty much that. Until Rocky 6 and 7. On the Pinehurst map, you can find the name of one of the camp areas called Camarillo Camp. Camarillo is the name of the town in which Friday the 13th Part 5 was actually filmed. Well, one of the locations it was filmed anyway. Camarillo is the actual name of the town where Pinehurst was to be located. Some of the other areas used were Aurora Hills, which is where the diner is in the film, and where Pam and Reggie meet up with Damien is out by Turtle Pond Trail and Franklin Canyon. Both of these areas were actually located out in Beverly Hills, California. So I would guess just by showing you this, you guys know where I am going with it. Yep, this is the hang line and laundry basket that was being used when good old Franklin showed up with 14 chocolate bars and wanted to help the girls fold clothes. And it all worked out too. He helped them fold the sheets, and as a reward they took him up to their bedrooms and let him melt his chocolate bars down their bare breasts as he watched Mighty Mouse on the TV. It was the best day of Franklin's life. But none of that shit ever actually happened. Fatty McChocolate Stains got chocolate all over the sheets and pissed the girls off. Then he went over to Vince, nicknamed Mad Diarrhea by his fellow campers, and tried to break a few knowledge eggs over his head about being polite. But he ended up getting chopped up for all his good intentions. He even lost his candy bar arm. They really should have like one sheet out here with some chocolate handprints on them for the game or some such thing. Just for fun, I sometimes like to tease the players that pick Roy to be Jason with tales of how he let his kid get fat on chocolate and how he was a bad dad. Roy players love that. In Friday the 13th Part 4, early on during the film when everyone goes skinny dipping, there is a small scene where one of the girls wants Sarah to jump in, but Sarah doesn't want to for whatever reason. I bring this girl up because of her blanket and the 2 books she has with her while she is resting on the dock by the water watching everybody get naked. On the Jarvis house map, you can find this spot on one of the docks that lead out into the water. I found mine at the bottom of the map, but normally you can find it closer up to the top. On the dock are the 2 books that Sarah has with her when she is asked to jump in the water. One of the books looks to be a diary of some nature as she is writing in it when interrupted by her friend. Just another small, minor detail the developers put into the game when paying attention to the films. If you have been lucky enough to collect all the Tommy tapes, then good for you! If not, then you might have missed a few Easter eggs to the Springwood slasher. In the 13th Tommy tape, ironic I know, in the tape we learn that Tommy has been put back into the psych ward again and knows Jason is alive. He is also having nightmares and needs to be sedated a lot in order to sleep, which he does not want to do at all, which you can tell here.
Patient continues to describe various conspiracy theories whenever asked to record his thoughts. He seems convinced that he is on the run out somewhere in society, and appears either unaware or in extreme denial of his actual location. Jarvis once again exhibits intense fear of nightmares and needs to be highly medicated in order to sleep. I am still trying to figure out how he has been lacerating himself while sleeping, but tonight I will personally be monitoring his behavior throughout the night. Dr. Lauren Marino, Weston Psychiatric, Springwood.
He seems to not know what is real and what is not anymore. And when he does sleep, he somehow manages to cut himself, but nobody knows how he's doing it. The best part comes at the end when the doctor tells us she is Dr. Lauren Moreno, Weston Psychiatric in Springwood. So there are a few Easter eggs here. Weston Psychiatric in Springwood, this is the same hospital used in A Nightmare on Elm Street as the hospital where Freddy's mom worked as a nun. It is also the name of the institute in part 3 of A Nightmare on Elm Street where all the kids are crazy but really they just stay up late because Freddy's trying to kill them in their dreams. And lastly, it is also in Freddy vs. Jason as the name of the psychiatric hospital where the kids go to take a drug called Hypnocell to prevent them from dreaming. All these hospitals or institutions are in Springwood, which is the setting of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Also, before he was Freddy, he was called the Springwood Slasher when he was killing all the kids in town. All in all, this is a cool reference tying together the Friday the 13th movies with Freddy vs. Jason and the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Out in the graveyard on maps like Higgins Haven or Pinehurst, you can find the cemetery. In the cemetery are graves, big surprise, and on those graves are some details from other players who were backers of the game and could put stuff on the stones for donations, or, whatever else they put in there. On one of these stones you can find part of the nursery rhyme from A Nightmare on Elm Street. Not sure if this was from a backer or just a subtle reference from the developers, but you can find the end lines of the spooky rhyme about Freddy Krueger. Those lines being, 7-8, better stay up late, 9-10, never sleep again. These lines referring to what kids of Elm Street should try to do to prevent themselves from falling asleep and getting killed by the Springwood Slasher. This is either a coincidence or another great name drop from the developers. On the Jarvis house map, if you go to your map and check the surrounding water around the map, you can find Deer Bay, which is named after poor old dead Rob Deer, who in part 4, the final chapter, goes looking for Jason Voorhees to avenge the death of his sister in part 2. Rob never gets his revenge unless he meant to get killed and made to look like a little bitch though. However, respects were paid to him and he got a bay named after his family anyway. Earlier I talked about the laundry line and what it had to do with Franklin, and this topic goes straight to the big guy himself. Since we don't get any chocolate bar handprint stains on any sheets or a counselor to play with, the best we can get is a name drop in the form of Franklin Canyon. Nothing too fancy for Pinehurst Candyman, but at least the guy got something to put in the game about himself. Tommy Jarvis has spent a lot of his time in psychiatric hospitals. So many in fact they started throwing him out because he was getting into fights in some of them. In the 5th Tommy tape, you can hear this as the doctor goes through a few of the places Tommy has been in. I'm going to play the clip for you so you have a very good idea of what I'm talking about here.
Hello, Tommy.
Hi, Dr. Moreno.
Please have a seat.
Thanks.
So, what happened this time?
I don't know.
You don't know. Tommy, this is the 4th program you've been kicked out of.
Sorry, Dr. Moreno.
What's with the Dr. Marino stuff, please?
Sorry, Lauren.
First, you got kicked out of Weston for fighting.
I've told you, the other kids there were crazier than I am. I couldn't even sleep there.
Smith's Grove, patient expelled for fighting other patients. Glen Echo, patient expelled for attacking orderlies. New Orleans Psychiatric, patient claimed to hear a man crying for his father in the nearby swamp every night and threatened suicide if not transferred.
After hearing this, Tommy has been to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital, where he was kicked out for fighting, and he says the kids there were crazier than him and that he couldn't get any sleep there. If this doesn't ring any bells, well, I just talked about it at number 6. It's another reference to the Springwood Slasher and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Smith's Grove, the next place he gets booted from, is the loony bin they stuck my favorite killer in, Michael Myers, after he killed his sister. Another nice Easter egg drop to one of the franchise killers. The next two places are a New Orleans psychiatric ward and some place called Glen Echo. First, let's start with this New Orleans place. The doctor tells us that Tommy spent some time there but started complaining and threatened suicide if he wasn't transferred because at night, in a swamp close by, Tommy is claiming to hear the sounds of a man screaming for his son every night. If this doesn't sound familiar, that's because you never saw the movie Hatchet. This movie is about 4 teenagers who go on a New Orleans swamp tour, and guess what happens when they get there? They learn the story of Victor Crowley, who was a horribly disfigured man who was tragically and accidentally killed with a hatchet by the hands of his father. The man goes crazy from this, and it is rumored at night he wanders around the swamp yelling out for his son. As a nice bit of trivia for the film, Victor Crowley is played by Kane Hodder. This last Easter egg was a bit harder for me to find out, but find it I did. The other place mentioned that Tommy got kicked out of was Glen Echo. I couldn't find much, but a horror movie called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. This is a story about a guy who was given a documentary team access to his life as he plans his reign of terror over the small town of Glen Echo. Simply enough here, a made-up town with a made-up psych ward. However, this movie also stars Robert Englund and has Kane Hodder as well. This movie also has a few Easter eggs in it to other horror movie franchises, but overall, it's just a name drop for this horror movie that pays its respect to the game and genre. In the final Tommy tape, Tommy talks about tracking down a survivor from the night he killed Jason at Crystal Lake. The person he is looking to track down is Deputy Rick Colon, the officer he locked in the cell to escape jail. He says he tracked this guy to Marysville, Ohio, but Rick changed his last name to his wife's maiden name of Pastore. Ironically enough, Tommy can't speak with Rick because somehow Rick got killed by somebody Tommy names as Pinker. After doing some digging though, I found out who Tommy was talking about. In 1989, Wes Craven made a film called Shocker. It was terrible. It was about a serial killer who gets the electric chair and makes a deal with the devil to come back to life in the form of electricity. Ooh. He's able to take hold of people and uses them to continue killing people, specifically friends of the one cop on his trail and the guards who guarded him while he was in prison. The name of the serial killer in the movie is called Horace Pinker, who is the same man I believe killed Rick in the Tommy tapes. My reason being this: the name Pinker is very specific. Number 2, the actor who plays Deputy Rick, Vincent Gustaferraro in Friday the 13th Part 6, is also in the movie Shocker, and guess what his name is in that film? Pastore. That's right, the name Tommy gives for the deputy, suggesting he's hiding out under his wife's maiden name. Chances are this guy was just another random actor in the movie filling in a spot, and I would assume he gets killed by the bad guy from what Tommy says on the tapes. Now, I have never seen the movie Shocker, but I don't believe there is any real connection between these two films. It's just a very cool way the developers were able to stitch together this very awesome story involving the characters from the movies and their connection to other possible horror films through actors and places. It's also a smart move on their part for blending this story together using these Tommy tapes to help tell the better story of why Tommy is the way he is and why some of the aftermath following in Jason's wake has affected him so tragically. Well folks, that is all I have for you on this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it useful. I know it was a little crazy with the psych wards and all the movie connection crossovers, but I thought it was pretty interesting that they tied all this stuff together. It was a pretty cool idea on their part. If you guys enjoyed it, you know the button things, do all that other shit and blah blah bloobity blah blah. I'm gonna go poop later.